Welcome to Takeaways, Life Lessons Learned. Hi, Lisa Brady.
Hi, Ian.
What are you doing here?
You made me be here.
I made you be here. Lisa Brady, the Vice President and Market Officer for Prologis for the Las Vegas market. For those who might not know, Prologis is a REIT. I checked this on Wikipedia. But correct anything wrong that I might be saying here.
Okay.
Prologis is a REIT focused on industrial properties, and in fact, it's the largest industrial company on planet Earth.
Planet Earth. 20 countries.
20 countries. So you came up in the commercial real estate industry. You have about 20 years of experience, but we wouldn't know it because how young you are.
Yeah. And it might be a little more than 20.
In your career, you've served in various roles, a span of roles ranging from sales agent, you've been in operations, you've been a principal, covering principal in a company, a brokerage company, covering tenant representation, buyer representation, investment sales, land acquisitions and dispositions, leasing, and even property management.
Little bit.
A little bit of property management.
Little bit of property management.
Is there anything you haven't done?
In this realm, not much. When I first started to be in a company specializing, you were either at Colliers or CB. And if you weren't there, you were doing whatever got food on the table. And so you kind of learned everything. We were a much smaller market then.
Yeah. So the companies that you've been at in your career include R.L. Moore and Associates. What's that?
So it actually started with Transwestern. And moved over to Realty Holdings Group, and then started our brokerage with Rob Moore, R.L. Moore, who already had his LLC set up. So it was easy for us to immediately open our company when we wanted to. And that's how we got the name.
Who owned Realty Holdings?
That was Keith Bassett. Originally, it was Keith and Erwin Molaski. We're partnered, I believe that was long before I was there. And Keith Bassett, we ended up helping broker the deal for Burnham Real Estate to buy the property management side of that. Most of the brokerage had gone by the wayside by that time.
All right, so we'll unpack all this journey and what is Burnham and what is that, and a great story that you've shared once about what it was like being a woman in the middle of all that I'm going to ask you about. But those companies that you mentioned, you've also, when you sold Burnham, you became Cushman and Wakefield. So now you're on the national stage, or at a company that's on the national stage. You've done stints with local companies like Gatsky Commercial, Sun Commercial, regional company like Ferrisley Investments. And then you went into the asset side of the business as a vice president with City Sunstone.
And that was 7 years of getting to see the other side. So I'd spent so much time doing deals and thinking I knew what an owner wanted, and finally becoming one and realizing most agents don't know what an owner wants.
All good experience.
All great experience.
All right. Before we see how that culminated in your career, you're a founding board member of the Sustainable Development Committee for NAIOP Southern Nevada, and you're a current board member for NAIOP.
Yes, thanks.
How did you become a current board member for NAIOP?
Gosh, it was just so fortuitous. All of a sudden, Chaim Mizrahi, who is going to be the new president, got to elect someone and appoint and designate someone to the board. And he called and asked me.
Of all the people
that
I could have called with my, it's a joke, but it's also not a joke. So you dedicate yourself to an industry, to an association, you put yourself forward, you serve between saying, hey, I think I should, join this committee, to then all of a sudden you're president of an organization that is 600 some odd members, the people that are really doing things in our industry locally. I'm the president now. And now I've got influence, but in this instance, I actually have power. And I have the power to appoint anybody I want to the board. That's one of the things that the president of NAIOP Southern Nevada gets to do. And I thought, you know who the best person I could think of for this appointment would be? Lisa Brady.
What was my question to you?
How much time is it going to take?
I think my question was, do I add value?
Yeah.
As I always ask anyone who asks something of me, is do I add value? And if you can define that I add value or you think I will, then I will agree. But if I'm just there because we like each other and it's fun to hang out, there's much better places to hang out.
And you were just starting your new role with Prologis, and it was like, I don't even know what my schedule or commitments are fully, but it wasn't a no right out of the gate. But we'll talk more about Lisa adding value. So let's continue with your intro. You are involved in a couple of organizations outside of work, some that include St. Rose Regatta Dragon Boat Festival. Explain, please. What is this one?
So for 10 years before COVID hit, I was competitively dragon boat racing. Dragon boats were...
There's one of your little skills.
It's one of my skills, yes.
I actually knew this. I didn't know about it.
It rolled in. We were... there was a group of us that whitewater rafted every year. And they started the first regatta. And there was a doctor back east who started bringing these races to town. And it was mainly to benefit breast cancer and building muscles that most doctors had told women after having radical surgeries that they shouldn't be rebuilding. And he didn't believe in that. And he brought a 2,000-year-old sport out of Asia to America and started these regattas. And St. Rose decided to put on the first regatta. My fellow whitewater rafters all read about it. And at the same time, we called each other and said, let's try this. And it got us involved. And for 10 years, heavily involved, as much as racing in Canada. I've got some of my former teammates are on the USA team and race internationally. And for a little team in Las Vegas in the desert that said we'd never win, we've got a box full of medals and some great memories.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
You're also involved in the Boys and Girls Club, KNPR Radio. What is MDA?
Muscular dystrophy.
Okay.
So giving to that, where I spend a good portion of my time now is on things that don't have names. So I like to, previous high school, working with counselors in critical care. So the kids who are pregnant, the kids who are living out of their cars, whose parents maybe won't leave the house, is helping them get on their feet and helping those kids. So I like working in things that aren't the huge organizations. As a company, Prologis does amazing things. We have an entire day that we close around the world in May, and it's called Impact Day. And every single employee around the world does an entire day of community service. And we're given so many hours as every employee to give back. And so work-wise, I'm able to give to Habitat for Humanity and all of these great organizations. But now for my personal time, I like spending it on places where there isn't a board of directors and there isn't a name on the door. I like directly helping people.
That's pretty cool. All right. So when you're not working and spending time directly helping people, you're spending time with your family and friends. You're cheering for the Las Vegas Golden Knights in your shitty seats.
Yeah. They're pretty awful. I know.
I remember the first day, like, hey, let's go to a game after months and months of scheduling. Logistics. You're in the logistics business. So thank you for your patience. Finally get to go. Come down to the seats. I find you. You're like, hey, yeah, okay. I sit down. I look at you. I'm like, Lisa, these are shitty seats. You got to get some better seats.
We were lucky enough in season 2, after becoming rabid fans of hockey, which we never thought we would be, after the first season, to be able to get seats down at the turn of section 13 and to be able to be down there and listen to them chirp at each other as they play. So it is, it's been a great, really, as a hobby and as a thing for our city, it's just been a great thing that we all can connect on this. Years ago, we could connect on the Running Rebels, but that's all we had. And for us to finally have some place where every time you're at a game, it feels like it's industry night.
Yeah.
You run into everyone you know. You can root on the team. You can yell and scream at them to shoot during a power play. You can do all those things together. And finally, as a community, we have these things that bring other communities together. So I absolutely love it. I have become a rabid fan. And yeah, the seats are, I'll try to do better.
I don't think you can. In addition, you like to cook and bake. What was the last thing you cooked or baked?
Last thing I cooked last night, I made an African spiced, it's suya, I think is how you pronounce it, but I made a chicken dish with some rice, and I've only cooked with the spice once before. And I was home alone last night. Michael was out of town, got in late last night, which is good because we could not have eaten this for dinner. It is one of the spiciest dishes I think I've ever made in my life. And I got a little too heavy handed. So, yeah, but I cook all the time. That's my way to relax. And baking is my way to show love to others.
So yesterday, Danielle, my wife, texted me, steak for dinner. Great. She's at Sprouts. She was in the packaged steak section. So she's like, they don't look good. How about rack of lamb, which is not something we just grab on a typical Wednesday night. I'm like, yeah, sounds great. So she ended up finding the steaks in the refrigerator section. Much better. So a couple steaks, rack of lamb. So now I get to figure out how am I going to make a rack of lamb. AP rub, salt, pepper, garlic. Put on the herbes de Provence after. Throw it in the smoker till 120, reverse sear it. Awesome. They were awesome. Kids ate them. Well, 2 of the 3.
Well, you've become quite the outdoor cooker. I don't want to call you a smoker because I said that about someone the other day and they were like, I didn't know he smokes. But you, I'm loving watching your journey in the just the realm of it, of how proud you are of the recipes and what you're doing, like for a fellow cook. I'm loving watching that.
It started with grilling. I watched a bunch of Food Network. What's the guy's name that had he's got a restaurant here, Amalfi. Bobby Flay. Bobby Flay, addicted to barbecue. Watch show after show after show. So he teaches you literally like all the fundamentals. This is protein. This is heat. This is how protein interacts with heat. This is how seasoning work, all that stuff. So that became my thing. Then, as you know, my wife bought me a smoker a few years ago for Father's Day. Went down that rabbit hole. Learned how to make pasta, which is several ways to make pasta. That's pretty fun. Lately, there's this guy on Facebook that I follow that does these little shorts around fish, the fishmonger.
Yeah.
You were a fishmonger.
I was a fishmonger. That's a very good memory.
Fishmonger. So we've been doing some of that. And now I feel like I'm at a place where with some things, not all, I wouldn't call myself like a chef or anything, but you go through imitation to now you can put your own things into it because you know enough about the principles of smoking or grilling or whatever. And so yesterday was one of those moments with the lamb.
So do you find that because you're doing a lot of this cooking that you don't repeat something twice? You don't make the same recipe twice?
Opposite. I want to keep doing it and doing it and doing it to make sure I got it. I nailed it. I've got now things that if I'm not known for it, like I want to be known for it. There's certain things recipes that I go back to that, you want to master it. There's one that I got from this guy, Malcolm Reed off YouTube, How to Barbecue Right. It's a beef tenderloin. You go to Costco, light trimming. It's not like a brisket where I'm spending up to an hour trimming the thing. It's like a couple of slices here and there. That's where I got the herb de Provence idea from. Same thing. It's like light seasoning. You put this herb on it, throw it in the smoker, slice it up, little like filet tenderloin deals with creamy horseradish dill. It's a showstopper. It's an absolute showstopper. People come over. It's like first time, whatever. It's like, oh my God. I love that. That's the payoff that you talked about with baking. To me, that's the payoff.
I tend to create something with what we have. And so
I like this.
It rarely is repeatable because I don't always have the same things around. So Michael will go, I really love that. That's great. And then someone else will be over for dinner and he'll go, but we'll never have it again. And I might do something a little different, but I'm not big on recipes. I'm more on creative and smell. Everything gets smelled. Like I smell everything together to make sure that it's going to taste right. Like my sense of smell and my taste go hand in hand.
That's interesting.
So that's for me a big thing.
A couple times I will similarly say, what do we have? And I'll ask either the Google thing on the countertop that we have. It's not Echo anymore. It's whatever the Google device is. Give me a recipe for, chicken with this, and that. And it'll give me the recipe based on what I tell it. That's where AI is going now.
Well, I like that I'd be good on that game show. I wouldn't be good on Jeopardy, but I'd be good on that game show where they kind of give you weird staple items from a kitchen and say, design something, just come up with something to cook. So that I could do.
We're going to get you submitted in for one of these shows to compete, home cooking show.
Have you done Masterclass?
That's where I learned how to smoke.
Yes.
From Aaron Franklin.
Yes.
Yeah.
So those are our favorite.
That's how I learned how to make pasta. From Thomas Keller, who's the English guy, Gordon Ramsay, and another guy, Massimo Bottura. 3 different executions on pasta, on the dough.
I learned it in Italy right before COVID. I
learned it in Italy. Because you're a avid traveler.
Yes.
That's in here too. Let me finish this and then we'll get into stuff. Stop interviewing me, Lisa. I'm here to interview you. So you're a cooker, you're a baker. You are open to paddling on any open body of water that you can find. You're an avid traveler. You seek out new cultures, traditions, cuisines around the world. We just heard that you're a competitive dragon boat racer. You're a fishmonger. And I will add, you're focused, you're caring, you're a great friend to your friends, you're loyal, you're accountable, you're a caretaker, you're an advocate, and you are a mentor to many people.
And I appreciate all those words.
So officially, welcome to Takeaways.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
You've shared some things, but generally those are my words. Tell us in your own words, who are you and what do you do?
First and foremost, I'm a Las Vegan. I've spent most of my life here. I have lived other places. I was not born here, but I was raised here from the age of 7. And so I got to see this city change. And one of the things I still love is we all connect. So just in our pre-conversation is, what high school did you go to? Mm-hmm. Where did you grow up at? Do you have shared things? That is probably my gift, is finding as quickly as possible a way to connect to anyone I'm talking to. So that is something that's very important to me. I don't like small talk and I don't like useless conversations. I don't want to just talk to someone to say that I had a conversation with them. I want to connect and I want to know something about them. So that's important to me. After college, I've spent the majority of my career in commercial real estate. I fell backwards into it. I don't know when you want to get into that strange little story of how I got here, but I have always done this. I've never sold a house. I don't know the first thing about it. I have stayed on this side of the fence.
This side being the commercial side.
Yes. And I don't consider myself ever looking to be on the other side of it and go into residential. I think that the business side is for me. I have made my way through a lot of different companies and a lot of different positions to become what the recruiter called me is a unicorn. So that when I was asked to join Prologis and be put up for this job, the recruiter kept saying, every time I'd say, I'm not sure I'm a fit for a REIT. I've never worked for anyone like that. He said, you're a unicorn and I think you're a fit. And lo and behold, 2.5 years later, I'm here and I'm a fit.
And are you in fact a unicorn in retrospect?
Yes. Yeah.
I would agree. Go back to you said a couple times, grew up here. The common ground is, hey, what high school did you go to? So what high school did you go to?
Valley High School, but I didn't get to graduate from there. We moved the first week of my senior year to California. And I was forced to live in a small beach town just outside of Santa Barbara.
You're being sarcastic?
Yes.
Make sure.
And live minutes away from the beach and finish what is a throwback comment of I was basically in a John Hughes movie, finishing high school and starting college in Southern California. Beautiful small beach town called Carpinteria. And it's a lovely bedroom community that you can literally ride your bike anywhere you want to go and you know everyone in town. And so I didn't get to actually graduate in Las Vegas, even though I'd been going to school with these kids for most of my life. But luckily still have some of those relationships.
And college?
College started City College in California. City College was the easiest way to get in college and didn't have a lot of money. And so at the time, it was $11 a credit, and they maxed you out at 11 credits. You could take more than that, but they didn't charge you for it. And I worked 2 jobs, and I went to school at night, and moved up to Oregon to be near my family, and continued college. And I really went to college not for a degree. I went to college to be able to start my own company. I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I didn't want to work for someone necessarily. So I decided that we had a friend who was an appraiser, and I was going to become an appraiser. It seemed that they had a good life. They were able to travel. They were able to do the things they wanted. They were their own boss. So I came back to town for 6 weeks to do an internship.
Came back to Vegas?
Came back to Vegas.
Oregon, you came back to Vegas.
Yep. Came to visit family that was here. My parents, spend some time with friends, and do an internship. I figured that would help me get a job faster in Oregon if I had something under the books where someone wasn't taking me on cold. It didn't work out. This person wasn't ready for an intern, friend of the family, but wasn't ready for that. And so I was here. I had a return trip planned for 6 weeks from then, and everyone was working, and it seemed really foolish to just sit around all day. I was in my early 20s, and
You couldn't just go on the app and change your flight?
couldn't go on the app, couldn't go on the internet. Well, I could have, but you weren't doing what you were doing now on the internet. You couldn't quite get things moved around as quickly. This would have been calling and paying a lot of money, because that was long before you had no fees. And I took a temp job, and the temp agency, I figured I'd work for a few weeks, put away some money, and then head back up to Oregon and get a long-term job and finish my life there. And I got sent. I spent a couple days in the temp agency's office, and I redid all their files, and I organized everything because I can't sit still. And they sent me as a gift to their landlord, who had just bought a new property, which was the Plaza, which was the first mixed-use property in Las Vegas over on West Sahara
downtown.
Yep. So all of the office and retail.
Sahara and where?
Sahara, where Coffee Pub was.
Okay. Oh, wow.
So all of those, all the retail out front and 2 of the office buildings. They had bought it through their investment fund, and it was Transwestern was the landlord, and they hired me immediately, sent me to real estate school, and that's how I fell into the business. And I was lucky enough to work under a regional person where I learned development, and I learned leasing, and I learned management, and I learned answering phones, and I learned, what the maintenance techs are. And so I really got to touch all the pieces that I oversee now. So it's kind of come full circle for me. About 2 years in, I was licensed, but still working just as landlord rep within the company. And Bob Hart, who many people...
I know him from Nevada State Bank.
Yes. At the time, Bob was doing office leasing for Realty Holdings Group, doing all of Erwin Molaski's office buildings and working over there. And he came and said, there was a very large age gap. And he said, I will teach you everything I know about the business, and you will organize us. You will keep us running, and you'll learn this fast tracked. 6 months later, Bank of America came to him and said, we want you to be our SBA business development. And he came in, and I was in my 20s, didn't really know what I was doing, working on one of the largest portfolios in town. And he said, I'm so sorry, kid, but I got to go. So I had been working with Rob Moore as well. They were kind of sharing me. And that first year was a draw on commission. And anyone who's in the world of commission knows that a draw on commission is it's a really, really tough way to live. So I was making $1,000 a month, draw on commission. That first year I made $15,000 total. And Rob and I started working full time together, and I now had this large office portfolio. I had only done, a handful of deals alone. I was just learning. And right after that started my life of mergers and acquisitions. So Grubb & Ellis came to town and wanted to buy out the company.
Is it still Realty Holding Group?
Still Realty Holding Group then. Grubb & Ellis came, wanted to buy it out. We started talking to a lot of different companies in town, and everything was, we'll give you 50% of whatever you bring in. And at the time I kept saying, you have all the relationships, Rob. You've been doing this forever. He was 20 years older than me. I'm like, why would we give all that money away to someone else? Why wouldn't we just start our own? And every day he'd say the same thing. I've been there and I'm not doing it again. I'm not having my own brokerage. I'm not going through this brain damage. So after about 30 days of me every day hounding him, he said, this is the deal we're going to make. We're going to start this company. You're going to do everything. You're going to do the paperwork. You're going to start it. The only thing we have is I have a corporation under my name. So that's the only thing you don't have to do. Everything else you're going to do, you're going to run it because you need the experience to do this. He goes, and if it fails, that's okay. We'll go and we'll work at someone's. If it succeeds, I will never take it away from you. I will never claim credit for it. And true to his word, he didn't do a damn thing. I started it, I ran it, and he never stepped in and he never took it. And we ended up merging with Burnham, which was the second oldest company in San Diego, I think behind the power company. They were the second oldest, and it was broker owned. And a lot of the names here in town, Tom Van Betten, there were a lot of people that had left Las Vegas that were working there. Great company, very well aligned. We became the principals in this office. They were never going to sell. 6 months later, they came in and said, we've decided to sell to Cushman & Wakefield, and you're our only office with partners, and we're sorry, but take it. There was no leaving it. You were just going to take it.
What do you mean by you're the only office with partner?
So everywhere that they had a satellite office, they were fully owned by the Burnham out of San Diego. This was the
Vegas
only
was
one.
A joint venture
yes.
with Burnham. Okay.
And the reason they wanted that is they had come to town. We'd helped them broker the deal for them to buy Realty Holdings Group at the time, which was just property management by that point. And Keith, and for anyone who knows Keith Bassett, my favorite story is, and I miss him dearly. He was one of the greatest men who helped pave the way for so many things we did in commercial real estate in Las Vegas. There are people in the industry now who have no idea that it started with him on some of the things, bringing in Class A office, the things he did. But I had worked for him for many years, and he was working across the street. He was now the Burnham office. We're deciding that we're going to merge. He's just an agent there now. He's no longer an owner. And he calls me and he said, hey, can you come over? So I go across the street. We're all downtown in different offices. I go up to his office and he goes, now, kiddo, I want you to treat me like you would any other agent. And I said, well, Keith, you just summoned me to your office across the street. I don't think you're like any other agent.
Meaning so that you're running the office.
We're now going to be the principals.
You're going to be.
And
this is when it went from, Realty Holdings to Burnham?
So they were already Burnham.
Okay.
And we were R.L. Moore, and now we're going to all be Burnham. And it's only going to last a very short time because Cushman's going to buy us out pretty quickly.
But you didn't know that going in, right? No.
We never thought that would happen.
So why would he say that to you? Are you the operations person?
So we were now owners, and he was no longer an owner, where he had always been in that ownership position. And so this put him in a position where he was now, in effect, working for us, where we had worked for him for many
He's
years.
telling you, just treat me normal.
Just treat me normal.
Fine, except
he's just asked me. Yeah. So a lot of great names came out of that Burnham office. Dan Hubbard was there. Matt Nelson was there. You know, we had a lot of people that were in and out of that office in the very short time that I had the pleasure of working with that have all become rock stars of their own, developers, senior agents. And it was a good time, but it was a short time. And Cushman came in and you asked me about what it was like being a woman in this career. And when I got in, there was a handful of women, and really a handful.
So that specifically, I remember you telling me a story once that I don't remember which of the acquisitions it was, but the two guys that were your partners basically said, "This is your deal. Is this where you're going with
Yes.
it?" Okay, cool. Sorry.
So I'm now partnered with Keith Bassett and Rob Moore, and we're going to go meet with all the brokerage houses, and we're going to spend some time, and they're going to pitch, because we don't have to become, the time Cushman's office here was the Commerce CRG office. So they were an affiliate. They weren't a true Cushman. Cushman was buying Burnham in California, but Vegas was going to end up being Commerce CRG.
Okay.
And we didn't have to go there. So we went and met with a lot of different companies, and one of them, I won't name, it's a major. We went and we got flown to Phoenix to meet with them and spend some time with their upper echelon. And as we sat in the meeting, both Keith and Rob sat on either side of me and told them, "You're talking to Lisa. Lisa's negotiating on our behalf. She's running this team. You talk to her." And one of the gentlemen in the meeting never once looked at me, didn't speak to me, didn't look at me, looked between the two of them and went back and forth. And we got in the car, and they had a nice black car and took us back to the airport, and we sat down in the airport, and you had three different generations sitting in this team. You had Keith, that was the most senior in it. You had Rob, who was in his almost 50s at this point, and me in my 30s. And Rob sat down, and he and Keith had been best friends for many years. And he said, "Well, we're not going to that company." And Keith said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Well, since they never spoke to Lisa, I'm pretty sure that's not the company that she's going to negotiate for us." And it was true. And probably 3-4 years later.
What year are we in this?
We're going to be in the mid 2000s. So this is like 2006, 2007. And
this isn't even like,
oh no, this isn't the 80s.
Yeah. That's crazy.
So my first few years, Rob would start every meeting with new people by saying, because they'd always ask me if I could go get them the coffee.
Yeah.
And he'd say, "She can't get you coffee if she's the one presenting. This is my partner." And he was always good at being my champion and making sure, but it still didn't stop people from, back in the day, I was the only one they hugged. I was the only one that... Instead of a handshake. And I would always laugh and go, "Rob, do you feel sad that you don't get the hugs that I get?" And he's like, "I don't understand it." So there was...
And then they go and hug him.
Yes.
Because they don't know the joke.
It became something that he and I were really, really cognizant of through our entire time. And we worked together off and on for 15 years. So a long partnership, but it was something that we almost became too sensitive to it. Not that we held it against people, but we would meet someone and we'd say, "Who do we think that they're going to connect better with?" The other one would stay in the background. So if we thought they were really organized, they were really detailed, maybe I sit in the front, maybe I talk the talk. If they were from certain parts of the world, they may never even saw me because we were afraid they wouldn't work with a woman. And there became a time where we had a client who we had had for 10 years and we had bought and sold land for, worked with him, but didn't do a lot face-to-face because he was flying in from other countries. And finally, Rob said, "This is ridiculous. you're doing all the work on his stuff and he doesn't even know you exist. So we went to a lunch and I remember him saying, how come I've never met her? She's the one I'd rather deal with than you. She's the one who does the details. And that was when we realized we were being overly sensitive and we were not gauging the market anymore. But I can tell you that, with your partner, Jared Katz, I showed, I've met him a couple times.
By the way, we're being sarcastic if you can't tell.
The beginning of my tenure at Prologis, the very first 2 weeks, I had to go show a piece of land. I didn't even know where it was. I had just gotten there. It's one of our development pieces. My partner at work couldn't be out here. And so our broker met me. We jumped in the car, luckily, because I could have never found the piece of land. It was out in Speedway. I hadn't even been by it yet. And Jared was on the other side bringing a client through, and he had a co-broker he was working with nationally. And it was the tail end of COVID. We hadn't seen each other in a long time. And he prefaced the remark and him coming up to me with his clients by saying, this is a good friend of mine that I haven't seen in quite some time. And so we gave a half hug because it was still COVID. And none of the other ones came up. We didn't shake hands. This was still kind of a no touching policy. We went to look at the land. Then they asked if they could see what evaporative coolers were. So my broker said, absolutely, we've got a tenant down the road that I put in the building. I know they'll let you see what this is. This was a group from Texas. And the co-broker stood outside with Jared and I, and we started to kind of try and work the deal and talking about what could we do, and that this customer had worked with Prologis in other areas, and that this would be a really good relationship. So we had this conversation. Everyone's outside. We've got the 2 cars. We go to leave. And this guy walks up and hugs me. And I just stand there and I'm a little bit thrown. And not because I'm not a hugger, because I truly am. I'm an affectionate person. I get to know people. I like to touch their arm. I like contact. But this man had just 20 minutes before told me how it's COVID and he doesn't get near anyone. And his clients all looked at him. And he said, I'm from Texas. Sorry, I'm a hugger. And all 3 of them in unison said, we're from Texas and we didn't try and hug her. And I got in the car with my broker and he said, does that happen to you? And I said, all the time.
Yeah.
And so there's still some differences.
Does that affect you and like the way you feel about yourself or think about yourself?
No.
Why not?
Because I'm
like
not
coffee, like, hey, give me the coffee kind of a thing.
I'm not 24 anymore. I know where I stand in this, and I'm content in who I am, and I'm confident in who I am. And so I don't feel it as a condescending thing, probably an inappropriate thing. And it threw me enough where I did think about how I would handle it if I were put in the situation again, especially during COVID, when that's just not a normal thing. And I would have been faster to reach my hand out, because I noticed that will stop someone is if I just reach forward to shake their hand.
Honestly, sometimes you don't know. Like, do you shake? Do you hug? If I don't hug, am I going to offend them?
And it's a tricky situation, especially post-COVID, where some people don't want to touch at all and really loved that they were segregated and isolated from the world. And then
germaphobes are celebrating. They are finally in their life. They have been seen and felt.
Yes.
Not felt.
And yes, hopefully not felt. So for me, it was more, it made me laugh, because talking to this broker and seeing his reaction just brought it all back. We were having a conversation the other day, a group of women talking about what it's been like, because we had all come in at different times. And I went back and said, the president of my region, which is the largest region for Prologis in the world, is a woman. She was my boss before as regional ops. She's just been promoted to president as of last October. And she just did an interview internally where she showed pictures of her children, where she talked about her family. And she said when she was a broker 10 years ago, she probably wouldn't have discussed family because there is still somewhat of a double standard of, oh, are you going to get pregnant tomorrow? And I remembered back to the fact that some of the jobs I got in the early days were because I knew I didn't want children. And I made it known that I wasn't going to get pregnant. And I do think that there are people who hired me because of that. And I look back now and it didn't mirror how I was going to make a decision, but it still makes me uncomfortable that that was something that was applauded as a desirable trait in a woman to hire, because you feel like you're going to get more years from them and you're not going to have any glitches in the system of them getting pregnant and having to raise a child during any part of that.
Wow. I've got a lot to talk with you about here.
Okay.
And got so much to cover. Before we get into all that, the show is called Takeaways, and it's about takeaways from people who have influenced me, just like you. You've influenced me. I ask everyone, I'm going to ask you, what has been the single most influential thing or event in your life that has shaped you the most?
That's such a big one. Professionally or personally?
Both. Or one or the other, your choice.
Personally, adversity in my childhood, parents who were, we'll call them ill-equipped to be parents, and me having to raise them from a young age, which is part of that need to protect and care for others, is I've been doing it most of my life. I had a grandmother that was the strongest woman I've ever known. And I've got some family members that take directly after her. I modeled myself a lot on her. She raised 5 children by herself.
Wow.
With no assistance. She never missed a day of work. She rose to positions of power in a time where a woman should have never held some of the positions she did. And she instilled in me that sense of not just hard work, but accountability to your job. Sometimes to the detriment of your personal life. And I've had to learn to balance that. But I hate that word because I feel like we've now become that there is no work-life balance. It's all one. And I can't speak for another industry, but I don't know, in our industry, I don't know too many people who go home and literally shut it off. It doesn't mean you're working all night, but it might mean that you're getting a text or that a deal's coming through, and the trickle-down effect. That if you hold moving a deal through to your client for 2 days, maybe a business doesn't start for 2 more days, and everyone that's involved in it doesn't get paid, or you lose the deal. But just, we'll look more esoterically, is when you look at, if a company doesn't open this month, they open next month, and maybe this was the beginning of their hot season, and because they weren't open, they have a slower start. Everyone who is a customer of that, who is an employee of that, who is affected by that, to their bank, to everyone, they're a microcosm that you're affecting. And I think that's something that not enough agents really consider anymore, is they consider their decision maker and how it affects them. But when you're looking at both sides and you're thinking about every day is $1 to someone else, and you're affecting that. So I had an instance when I was an agent. I was young. I had a personal, one of my dearest friends was having her first child, and I was a part of the birthing team. And so she had a 36-hour labor. Ooh. So it was walking around the neighborhood for 2 days, and I was all in. And instead of responding to a client, I said, I can do that Monday. And come Monday, I realized I had left them in a state of anxiety all weekend because I didn't respond. And this was before texting was big. This was before you kind of instantly, where this was more email. Mm-hmm. And I wrote an apology letter to that client, and I still have a great relationship with them. And I apologized and said, I learned a valuable lesson, is that we don't get to just turn off. We don't get to go home and say, I clocked out at 5 and it ends, because there's critical time sensitive things, and there are people's businesses and lives and livelihoods on the line. And so that was a huge turning point for me growing up in the business, is to say, that's not how I want people treated.
The only pushback I will give you now, I think, is that the industry has evolved to where you can be out because we have teams, but you still have to do that thing where if you're going to be checked out, to make sure that your clients know, hey, I'm going to be out of pocket. This is the person that's going to keep this thing moving forward when I'm not here.
Absolutely. And it's,
but by the way, that's something I learned when I came to MDL Group. Prior to that, it's like, when you're gone, you're gone. It's not a big deal. Like the amount, like we have a whole out of office checklist here, primarily the property managers, because the property keeps running when you're not there. Emergencies keep happening when you're not there. So there's a whole checklist. When you're out, set yourself up for success to be out. And it's a discipline to make sure you pre-plan, you have the checklist, you go through it, you make sure everyone knows, whoever is assigned to your property knows the emergency contacts. People know that you're going to be out. The auto office is on with, I don't do auto office. Never did that before, but
it's important. Yeah. It's important. And if you don't have a team, if you are one of those who's still holding out and is a lone wolf, I don't know how you do it.
Yeah.
And again, mine is not to say that you have to be on all the time, but there are times that it's critical. So I tell my team, even if I'm out of town, I'll look at emails maybe once a day to keep things moving for my own anxiety of not coming back to 4,000 emails at the end of a week. But if something needs to be signed, I'm the one who's signatory on leases, on those things. I want to know what's happening. That's not something, unless I leave the country, that's not something I'm going to ask another market officer to do. And so I ask them to text me and say, you have something that needs it. If not, I'm not going to worry that there's something critical waiting in my inbox.
Yeah. And now technology is way different than before.
Yes.
It's like literally 5 seconds.
Yes. It's a DocuSign.
Yep. That was professionally, one thing or event that has defined.
So that was professionally.
Kind of you went from the childhood adversity into work ethic from your grandmother.
So, having her, so back to grandma, she had a massive stroke in her late 50s, which changed the trajectory of her life, our family's lives, everyone. And seeing her work ethic from the other side is that it can also be detrimental. And so having to say that there has to be some time where you are stepping back and you're saying that if I get hit by a Mack truck, this company has to still keep going, or this world has to still keep going. It made, I think, everyone in my family kind of reassess how that looks, and not being the point of contact for everything in our lives, where she had done, her job came first and her family knew it. Everyone. So that's how I grew up, is having to look at it from both sides. And then meeting Michael and getting the pleasure of helping raise his son since he was 5. My stepson is, just one of the joys of my life, and getting to see him grow, but also having the ability in this industry where I worked really hard at night after he went to bed, but during the day, I did not miss a single thing of his schools. So I didn't miss a recital. There were times I was the only parent there that his mother and his father couldn't be there, and it was just me. I saw every play. I saw every awards ceremony. So there's great things about being cognitive of what's going on and how you have to treat your family, because that time with your children is so short. And I look back and I'm so proud that during those years I got to do that.
That actually just came up about the finiteness of certain times in your life. And I heard a speaker once talk about kids, the amount of time that parents spend with their kids while they're in their home versus when they leave the home. And it's, you will never spend more time with your kids. It seems like common sense, but when he said it like that, you'll never spend more time with your kids than when they're living with you. And then from that point forward, when they move out, it's a diminishing curve. That was pretty powerful.
My mom passed away 7 years ago. She had cancer for 4 years. The last 2 years, I was trying to be in Oregon at least once a month to spend time with her. And so I would plan out 5 or 6 trips in advance. And when we were getting towards the end and you could see it was speeding up, and she lived 3.5 years longer than they expected her to, I started counting and I started telling people, I'm only going to see my mom 6 more times.
Ouch.
And the last month of her life, I stayed there and helped usher her through that last month with my family. But before that, I knew I could count on one hand how many times I was going to see her. And when you start thinking, when people are like, it's such a gift when you're close with your family and they're close to you, that you can go see them all the time. But if your family lives in another state, you have to start thinking about that is, okay, if I see them 4 times a year and they only live 10 more years, when you start doing the math, it takes you back. It really.
Do you think most people think like that?
No, but I think we should.
I agree. But it's kind of morbid. In a way, it's sad. Or I remember a particular time, I'm about to graduate college. You're in social circles. So one of the people in the social circle, she was in a sorority, I was in a fraternity, and we were like saying bye for something. And I'm thinking, and I remember having the thought, and I actually said it out loud. I'm like, we're probably never going to see each other again. And she's like, oh, don't say that. You're so sad. And I was like, it was like a pretty coherent thought in that moment. In that moment, I'm like, probably never see her again. And I think like this sometimes, not all the time, but there are finiteness to certain things and probabilities to certain things. But when you're, who calculates, okay, so my parents don't live here, they live there, we'll probably see each other twice a year on holidays. If they live to the life expectancy, it's this many. People don't really.
But I think you should.
Or plan their life like that.
But I think you should, because when you are together and you're spending time and they're annoying you, as only families can do, you revel in it and you appreciate it, because when you no longer have it, there's no going back. There's no re-editing it. There's no putting it back in. And so if we all took that moment, and they're always saying like, live as if this is your last day. Mine is live as if you know how many times you have to spend with someone. If you knew you have 3 more conversations with someone you care about, how intense would those conversations be? How amazing. You wouldn't just sit around talking about nothing. You'd try to get everything you could into those conversations. And so remember that when you're with the people you love, you just don't know how many of those you have left. So make them good. Make them real.
So Brett Davis, office broker in our market, has a daughter and counted how many summer trips they have as a family before she's off to college, and went all in on these summer trips, elaborate, long summer trips. She could invite a friend. He would tell the parents of the friend, like, you pay the airfare, I take care of everything else. So she had a friend there, but he had this kind of approach to the time that he had with his daughter for the remainder of the summers that they had together while she lived under his roof.
It's powerful.
It's powerful. it also helps you think about things differently. Like, all right, so this is a down year in commercial real estate. I'm not making as much money, but I'm going to dip into savings to pay for my second to last summer trip with the family before they're off to college, because I can likely make it back, and not feel about, I'm not, sticking to the plan of putting X amount away and all that stuff.
Yeah. And everybody's different and everyone's priorities are different. The one thing that doesn't change is once someone's gone, they're gone. So until then,
that's something we all have in
you
common,
you got to move, you got to move things around. You got to rethink the way you're approaching it.
Pretty interesting that we got to that from the question of what defines
our conversations always take us
they do.
Down different rabbit holes.
That's why this thing is so great, that I get to sit down and talk about takeaways with friends, as if we would do at a bar or at a restaurant, or in a living room.
I don't think we've ever had a lunch that was less than 2 hours.
Yeah. Let's see how long this takes.
Yeah.
Not that we're on a time limit. I mean, how long it'll take. All right. We're kind of on a good segue here. So I'm preparing this.
Segue away.
No, because what we're talking about is the finiteness of things and relishing certain things and whatnot. So I'm at the kitchen table. I've got my laptop. It's evening, eating dinner. I'm preparing this little outline that I'm going to send to you. So my laptop is sitting there, finish eating, clean up. Dog has the scrunchie, and if we don't get it out of his mouth, he's going to swallow it. Kids are taking showers. There's all this stuff happening, as happens in a household like ours at that time of day. So laptop's there. I come back. I'm putting the food away because that's my job at home. My middle daughter, Ava, is sitting at the table where my laptop is and is reading what I'm doing. And she's asking me, what is this? And I tell her, sometimes you see that I'm watching myself on YouTube for that thing that I do where I talk to people. She said, yes. And I said, well, I'm doing that tomorrow with my friend, Lisa Brady. And she starts typing. And she's like, telling me she's going to put questions in here for me to ask you. And then she's like, are you going to ask her? I'm like, yeah, I'm going to ask her, because I know that you would appreciate something like this. And then the cool part is you come back after to see what your 9-year-old daughter decides to put in here for me to ask Lisa Brady. And she kept asking, are you going to ask her? Are you going to say those things? I'm like, yeah, I'm going to do it, just like it's there. So,
but I love that you sent this without telling me.
Yeah. Well, no, it wasn't.
Yes. And so as I read through kind of some of your thoughts on this, I got to that and I'm like, well, this is the best part.
Well, I put in there for you questions from Ava.
Yes.
So I figured if you
the speech pattern definitely changed, and the punctuation changed.
Yeah.
Yes.
I didn't change much of it. Maybe one capital letter. That's it. But I'm going to take you through Ava's questions as they're written, with all of the speech patterns and
I would hope so.
Punctuations and lack thereof. You ready?
Are we going to go as fast as I feel like I read it?
Yeah, let's do that. Are you a Swiftie?
I think she is one of the most amazing performers we have out there. I don't think I own a single song. I could probably sing every one of them.
Do you like pasta?
Of course.
I dance. What do you do as a living?
As a living, I build buildings, but I dance too. I love to dance, but I don't do it for a living.
When is your bedtime?
My bedtime is whenever I want, because I'm at an age no one tells me.
Tell my dad after you hear this, I want candy, all in capital letters.
In all capital letters. She wants candy. You got to make it so. She's a co-writer on this. She has production rights. That is her payment.
I am the middle child, by the way. I have a brother and a sister. They are annoying, very annoying. I'm writing this to a girl I don't know. I means I don't know. Okay, yes, I'm crazy. What color hair do you have?
I have brown hair. I have always had brown hair. I am a brunette. I am an only child. Grew up with dogs who were all called my sisters. And I have heard about all three of them, so I feel like I know them. And I wouldn't say they're all annoying, but she's in a better position to speak on that.
Tell me everything you know and answer all these questions, all in caps, by !
Everything I know is every year that you get older, you realize how much you don't know.
One more thing. I'm in 4th grade. Are you famous?
I am not famous. I was in 4th grade and I remember being in 4th grade, but I am no longer in 4th grade. And no, I'm not famous.
I am crazy right now. One more question. How old are you?
I am older than your dad and younger than God.
Okay. Answer all these questions or else. Bye.
Okay.
All in caps.
Bye, Ava. Part. Thanks. I loved it.
So I see this. Now I'm taking her to bed. She asks again, like, are you going to, yes, I'm going to ask her. Great. I don't even know what she looks like. What color is her hair? She asks. So I pull up your LinkedIn profile and show her your picture. She guessed your age. Do you want to hear what it is?
What is it?
37.
I love it. Tell her, yes, I'm 37 now. That was the best part. And I loved reading it because it was rapid fire. Like I could see her on the other side going, are you a Swiftie? How old are you? What do you do for a living? Do you like this? Like having no pause, just get gut reaction. Yeah. I loved it.
Yeah, that's cool.
I think you should have her do this for all of your interviews. Is have her just
okay,
throw that in the middle.
Here's the next person. Yes. Put some stuff in there.
Yeah.
I don't know that guests would appreciate it as much as you would appreciate it. That's why I thought it was so cool that, again, kismet. It's like she just happened to sit there and start doing this. And it's like, I knew it'd be not just appropriate, but appreciated.
Yes, I loved it.
Me too. Thanks. All right. So we were talking about you. We were talking about your career arc and all the places you've been and all the things that you've done and all the things that you've experienced. We got into your, the thing that has shaped you the most and really has some of the things that I shared about you, which is interesting. My observations of you, and I asked Jared for his input too about in the preamble about how you're caring and protective and all that, how and where that all comes from. I think that's so fascinating.
It's, and I think most of what we are, and I know they talk about those formative years, but it really is when you're under 10, most of who you're going to be for life is pretty much, you're going to learn things along the way and you're going to navigate, but, who you are and what you go through is a big part of that. We did during your year as president with NAIOP, we did an amazing thing on our annual retreat. So we went away, and every year the board goes overnight to stay somewhere to collectively work on what we're going to try and accomplish for the rest of the year and coming years, but also to bond, because a bonded board that knows each other definitely accomplishes more, I believe. Mm-hmm. So we went to Mesquite, stayed in the lovely Casablanca Hotel. And I had been on the board for about 6 months. And I knew a few people on the board previously, and I had started to become friends with other ones. But there were a lot of people on that board who knew me for 6 months and only through this board. And you brought out a large board for us all to write on, and you made us stand at the front of the room, and you had everybody write 3 descriptive words about everyone else. And as we went around the room, that person had to stand at the board and write down the words that were being said about them. So how would you describe this person? And I would have done anything to leave the room at that time. I was so nervous at how people perceived me because I just didn't know. We hadn't spent any, there were a couple people who really knew me well. And then most of them really didn't know me at all. And I wasn't sure the interactions, how that was going to be described. And so one of the things you did is we weren't allowed to use the same descriptor for the same person. So if someone else used yours, you better have some other good ones in your back pocket. We went around the room and we wrote them. Then we had to say them out loud. And then you got to do this to someone else. And it was such a powerful moment for me having people say things that I'm not sure I would even describe of myself. It's not how I see myself, because I'm looking in the mirror and with a critical eye, and things were said. And I took that piece of paper and I wrote everyone's name next to the thing they said. And I put that in my desk at work. And every few months I pull it out and I remember that this is who you are to the world. And it was such a great, and I'm not even sure. I think you knew it was going to be a powerful moment for everyone, but I don't think you knew how much it would touch people. Because even the most jaded in the room who like to be unemotional were touched by it.
I've been on the receiving end of this exercise where you go up and people say how they feel about you and you write it down and then you read it back and, say I am and the words. And it's like, holy smokes. It's impactful.
Yeah, it is. And I think it's something that we do well, that every few years in school, you get to have one of these where this is the way people see you. This is how you're coming across to your peers. And I think it would do a lot for kids to hear that. And I had someone say this to me this morning at the State of the City for North Las Vegas. And they said, "Are you nervous?" It was Dan Palmieri, who Dan has no problem talking to anyone. And for anyone who knows him in the industry knows that. And he said, "Why are you nervous?" And I said, public speaking is something I'm new to. It's something I've shied away my entire career, and I'm making myself do it the last 2 years. And we started kind of unwinding. And I said, "What if I don't know what I'm talking about?" And he goes, "Who cares?" He goes, "We all think everyone else thinks something about us." He goes, "After 1 minute talking to you, they're thinking about themselves again." And saying, what does that person think of me? And so we're all in the same spot. And so it was a really good reminder, is that you can sometimes get too focused on what do people think about me, when the reality is most of the world isn't thinking about you. They're thinking exactly that. What is someone else thinking about them?
Mm-hmm. So true. You brought up something about feedback that, you mentioned in school, but we talked about it like we did in the NAIOP retreat, and how you give feedback. I mean, you're in a position of leadership, so you're likely giving feedback more than you're receiving feedback. So what are some of your takeaways on giving feedback?
Everyone should be trained on crucial conversations. It is the hardest thing to do, is have a difficult conversation with someone and do it with your heart. And so one of the things that we practice in our office, and we're learning, and I can't say we're perfect at, but we're all learning, is to start every conversation, you have to believe that the other person has your best interest at heart, that they truly care about you, and it's not malicious. And if you can start every conversation that way, where you take a couple deep breaths and you go, "Okay, I know you're not here to hurt me. I know you're not purposely doing something. You want what you think is best for me. And I might not see it the same way, but for me to listen to what you have to say, that's the respect we have between each other." So that's what we're working on in my office, is making sure that everyone starts with kind of that thought process, is that the other person isn't doing this to win and isn't doing it to hurt someone.
Is that something that already existed in the culture of your office? And if not, how did you introduce that?
Introduced it slowly. So I can't say that it was a culture that didn't have trust. It was just completely different. The previous leaders of our office were running multiple offices. And so they were not sitting there every day, all day. And I was the first one in 10 years that was actually based in Las Vegas, running the office in there every single day, not working from home, not remotely. I was there and really sat down and got to know everyone. And so they might have not liked this, but every 6 to 8 weeks, I had an hour-long one-on-one with every single team member to get to know them, and they got to talk about whatever they wanted. We'd talk about 3 things. You can talk about professional things. You can talk about growth. You can talk about things you're annoyed with your husband or your wife. You can talk about whatever you want. You have a safe space for an hour with me. You can use a half an hour. You can use what you want, but you have that. And it started to get them to feel comfortable, start to unwind, because I came in right after COVID. And for most offices, that put a wedge between the teams. Is you could say things. It was more anonymous. You could do things. Why is that person not on camera right now? Are they at Starbucks? Are they, you just had these little thoughts about everyone that I started to unwind and say, well, do you really think that's where they were? Did you ever ask them? Is that the conversation you had? And as we unwound them, some of the conflict we had in the office, both sides realized, well, I had this completely wrong. And that opened the door for me to teach them what is the cornerstone of everything I do, which is, if I have always told my agents, my team members, everybody, you focus on the client. You focus on our properties. You focus on our customers. We don't call them tenants at Prologis. We call them customers. And that's how we treat them. They are integral to what we do. And so if you are focused on making that the most successful, taking care of it, I will focus on getting you the accolades for it, getting you the promotions, the money, the bonuses, the things you want. Let me be, and I have to believe that my boss is going to do the same for me. So if I focus on you and not on my growth, my growth is always something I'm focused on, but I'm not focused on how do I tell everyone I did a great job on that, or how do I make sure people know that I'm putting in extra time. That's not for me to do. That's for my boss to do. And if I believe that every link in the chain going up has that everyone's at their best at heart, then you have a trust tree you can't break. And so everyone will be focused on what they need to be focused on, and don't have those voices in their head of, that person's getting a promotion, or that person makes more than me, or all of those things. Is we'll make sure you're taken care of. We'll make sure that you get the accolades that are so deserved. And once we broke through that with the team, it was a whole new place. And the team was really good. They just hadn't had that before. It was more move at Mach speed. We're in growth mode, go. And I was lucky enough to come in and be able to take a little step back and build more of the camaraderie in the team and kind of pull some of the pandemic out of the conversation.
If I'm that person, I want to believe what you're saying, but at the same time, I want to make sure that my work and extra work and my brilliance and everything is noticed. And what if it's not, like you said, it's your job to make sure that I'm getting the accolades and the raise and all that stuff. But what if it's not to the standard that I want?
That's part of the feedback. We have to have that conversation. You have to tell me you're not getting what you need. So that's part of those meetings. That's part of having those conversations. If you're working for a leader that doesn't want to have that feedback, you might have to look for a different leader. That's probably not where you're going to be at your best.
About in scenarios where what they want is more than what they're giving.
You have to have that. That's the crucial conversation. That's the tough one. And so part of that conversation is, what do you want to achieve? And Chaim says, I want to be president. And the first thing we say is, okay, what are the first 3 steps to get you? Let's not worry about when you get there. What are the first 3 steps? You and I define the problem. Let's sit down and say, okay, the first 3 steps are, I need to do this, this, and this. And what I will always tell, and my team will all tell you because they've all heard this, I will say, I'm not your mother. I'm not going to ask you if you're doing these steps. Once you've got these 3 steps done, you put it on the calendar and we're moving to step 4, 5, and 6. But until steps 1 through 3, because we've just agreed that's the path. That's what you need. And here's the problem. So we have to do those steps. Those steps may take you a month, 6 months, but I'm not going to come back and tell you, why haven't you gotten it done? This is something you want for you. And so what I started saying to the team last year was, the boat is in the water and all the things have been thrown to you. There's a ladder, there's a life vest, there's a rope, but I'm not pulling you in. You have to pull yourself in. I've given you all the tools to get back in the boat. But if I pull you in, you learn nothing from it.
Do 100% of your people pull themselves?
At this point, yes. Yes.
Why do you think?
Some liked that there wasn't a lot of oversight. And I'm there every day. I'm in, we don't have offices. I'm in the middle of the bullpen. I know what's happening. Not to say that, they don't have their own autonomous, because I don't micromanage people, but I'm right there. And so if I see people starting to move towards a conflict that can be solved, I try different ways of stopping it. And so I have 3 senior leaders that work with me, and I try not to get in their way. If they ask me and say, I need help, then I jump in. But I'm trying to teach them to continue that trust, is that if someone in the team can come and say, from where I sit, that person isn't behaving the way we do or isn't living up to this, I will ask them, do you want to be in the room? Okay, no. Well, now I got to dig in. And if I don't see the same thing, you either have to admit that it doesn't exist, or you have to be in the room and we're going to have a conversation, because we're not going to have these silos of you tell me someone's bad and you tell me someone's bad, and getting the sides is, I will break it down and I'll unwind it. But then at some point we're all going to come together and talk. But it's a growth. It's, for me, before I even got here, I didn't understand servant leadership. I just practiced it. And so mine has always been, I serve the people who work with me as opposed to them serving me. And in that, I didn't even know that that was a philosophy till I got to Prologis. And then I was like, oh, well, that's kind of how I already lead. But for the team, is one of the things I did right away is no one was going to just trust me. No one knew me. I didn't have any historical with any one of these people. This isn't like I went into a brokerage where I know, like all our broker teams, I knew most of them. I already had long-time relationships, but my internal people, day one, I walked in as the leader of the market and I knew less than the newest person who knew the least. I knew nothing because Prologis doesn't do it like anyone else. So I had a lot of history and I had a lot of experience, but I had to learn everything from scratch there. So my ego had to take a backseat very quickly. And I had to say, everyone, you know more than me. So that's part of it. The other was, I said, when I got there, I would hear people say, well, this is broken, but it's always been broken. And I was like, okay, can we fix it? Well, I think there's some fixes, but no one's ever fixed it before. And I said, okay, let me try. And so it started where my team knows 7 no's. Give me the problem, and I will go beat the bushes through Prologis from 7 different people. By the time I get to the 7th no, it really means we're not going to make a change. But until then, maybe we will. And I tell them, it could take me 2 months to get through those 7 no's, but I won't give it up. And so I started doing that. And sometimes we actually affected change. And sometimes things worked for them. And they started to trust me. But I did not walk in and expect nor get everyone's undying affection for me and absolute trust. I had to earn it. And it took a while. And it wasn't that people distrusted me. They just didn't know what to make of me.
I want to pin some things down. because we started with your career arc and now we're over here with
rabbit holing like we do.
Early days of Prologis, but you got into the industry, the commercial real estate industry. How'd you say you fell into it backwards?
Mhm.
You spent 20 years working in various parts of it with various types of companies, from small private to big national. Different companies behave differently, have different objectives, have different resources, have different interests. Different parts of the industry also operate differently. From, you said, brokerage teams. There's operations, there's management, there's the office that you walked into. You also talked about how, so in Prologis, I want you to describe more about Prologis, but more than what we talked about. So it's a REIT, a real estate investment trust. It is publicly traded, from what I understand. It's 25,000 employees, something to that effect. Am I wrong? How many? 80,000, 90,000, 100, less.
Okay, so here's my favorite
I will
stats.
stop talking and let you.
Here's my favorite stats.
Yeah.
We have 1.2 billion square feet around the world
Of industrial property.
Yes.
How much is in Las Vegas, just for context?
Just under.
But like, what's the total?
We're ranging in, by the time that we deliver everything that's under construction this year, we'll be closing in on 180.
So Las Vegas has 180.
That's all industrial.
180 million square feet.
180 million square feet.
And Prologis
Worldwide has 1.2 billion.
How much of the
square
180
feet?
million is Prologis in Las Vegas?
15 million.
15.
With land to build another 15.
Okay. And so,
and that's
years ago. When did
you? Just over 2.5 years ago.
Okay. You get hired as the market leader. Before that, you mentioned Prologis has somebody running this office, the Las Vegas office, that doesn't live in Las Vegas. Not uncommon for a company like that. You have the Phoenix guy flying in, Reno flying in. Now Vegas is at a point where they're ready for their own market leader. And you're a unicorn. The recruiters out there looking for Prologis with their vast resources. They probably have the best recruiter out there. And they find little old you.
And they found little old me.
And you are a unicorn because of your various experiences.
Yes.
Operationally, brokerage-wise, development-wise, managing the property after you have the property. That's why usually in our industry, you get into a lane. You're a broker. You're in property management, you're in operations, you're in development, you're in financial analysis. You really have experience in all this. So now they bring you in. Oh, and by the way, it seems like you have some innate people skills too. Imagine that. How big is the office when you come in? Like, what's the head count?
So we were at about 10 people, and we are now at 15, running 15 million square feet. And Prologis has 1.2 billion square feet. We have a little over 2,400 employees around the world.
Small. Very small.
We have, here's my stats of the day. Last year's stats were the US GDP. We had just under 7% of the US GDP went through our warehouses in North America. 3% of the world's. Right now, 1 in 3 products consumed, built, used in America goes through our warehouses. 1 in 3. We are a lean machine, and we are a family. I have rarely been, I've been at some small companies where it truly is family, where it's, you and 2 people and you're digging out of the ditch together. I thought coming over here, I was going to have a really big adjustment going into this, publicly traded enormous company that is just going into its 20th country. I mean, that's just staggering to me. And every time I go to an event, I was just at the US kickoff, where everyone VP and above was in Dallas together. And I met people that I've seen on a Zoom, or I've only heard their name. They're in another region. It feels like you're at a family reunion. It feels like you were all raised by someone similar, but you're not all alike. Your authenticity, your individuality, all of that is really nurtured at this company. And I came back from my first event. I'd been with the company a little over 3 months. And I came back and I'm telling Michael all about it. And I was with all my counterparts. So my partner is Matthias Hughes, and he is on the capital deployment side. So he's the investment officer. I'm the market officer. We work hand in hand with the development officer, kind of three legs. There's a lot more to the company, but those are the three main on the real estate side. So we all get together at this thing. We spend time, and Michael, the first thing he said is, "You found your tribe. I've never seen you so happy. I've never seen you talk about people as if you were on a retreat from college, that you were at a reunion for the family. It is, it's my tribe. And I feel like I'm doing the most." So every job that you take, and you've held different positions. You've stayed in brokerage for the most part, but you've held different positions. And sometimes you're in a position and you're like, this is using some of what I did, but really it's so specific that I don't get to play. This is the first time that I can go back to day one of my career and I can pull stuff from every day and somehow make it where I affect change.
That's cool. And it's cool that you found it because you deserve it.
Thank you.
So one of the questions I wrote, and we're like right on it. It seems like all the experience you've had led you to your current role, which seems like you are made for. What are your takeaways about the journey to get there?
There's a couple things that sound cliche, but now at this, as my brother-in-law, who is 18 months older than me, likes to say, at our advanced age, that I learned. One of them is Rob Moore used to say this to me when I was much younger and something would go wrong. A deal would die. You'd spend a lot of time. And as a broker, you can spend 18 months on a deal and not make a dime. And that's tough to go home. It's tough to go home that night and say, like, I just put all of that energy into something and I got nothing from it. And he used to say, you're so focused on today, you don't know how the story ends. And it was something that I thought I understood over time. And I thought I had really, I could define this. And I called him a couple months ago and I said, this is the first time that this is how I'm defining it is. I kept waiting for the end of the story. So I would say, I worked at this company. I didn't really love who I was working with. I left. It left a bad taste in my mouth, how it ended, what have you, or a deal died or something. And it, you carry some animosity for it, whatever it is. And then later you say, but if that hadn't happened, if I hadn't lost that deal, or if that hadn't happened, or if I hadn't liked that person, whatever it is, I wouldn't be where I am today because I can place all the steps of, oh, that put me here where I got introduced to that person. That's who I worked with the next 7 years. I'd have never met that person in the same place and time and had that opportunity. And I said, I finally know there's no end. Until you die, you don't know the end of the story. So you can't take each of these and make them their own little box that you hold feelings about because they're just another step in the journey. And maybe today where I am, I've told everyone at Prologis since day one, this is the last business card I ever want to carry. I love it so much. I am having so much fun. But to say never doesn't exist anymore because I would have told you 3 years ago that I would never be working for a REIT, that I would never be working for Prologis. And so you just never know when it's going to end. And you can't keep giving all this energy to past things, is just chalk them up as they were another step. It's another door, it's another window, it's whatever you want to call it, but it's just another step in the chain. And the story doesn't end until you're gone. And then we don't know what the story looks like.
So you work for the largest industrial property company in the world on planet Earth. What's a takeaway from working at Prologis?
The biggest one, and Hamid, who is one of the founding members of our company 40 years ago, would be so happy that this is the one that I choose to say, which is, if you get complacent, you become obsolete. So look at every company that was best in show. You look at the Kodaks, you look at, and there's a bunch of companies that we use internally anytime we talk about these companies that were the highest and best of class and got complacent and felt, well, we own the space. We don't have to keep innovating. And none of them are around anymore. And so ours is constantly, and our new, and you and I both share, I love Simon Sinek. I love Start With Why. But my favorite piece of it is, don't compete with others, compete with yourself. Be better than yourself. As a company, be better than you. Don't look and say, what is that company doing? Because anyone who has been in a sport, when I used to dragon boat race, I didn't want to race a team I knew we'd beat because they were timed heats. So you weren't just racing the people in your heat, you were racing all the heats. So if you were in a heat where you knew you were coming in first no matter what, you don't go as fast.
You're not pushing.
And I want to be in the heat with the top teams because it pushes my time better, which means that we're going to come in. So you always have to be going for what is better, not looking at what everyone else is doing and saying, hey, we're doing that better. We shouldn't. So ours is constant innovation. It's constantly looking and not saying this is the way we've always done it, is what do we try? So we are moving forward on initiatives every day. And I mean every day. And some of them will fail and we want them to fail quickly. And we don't care what we put in it because we don't consider that lost time or money. We consider that an education of what doesn't work. And that is outside of the personal side of, I love who I work with. And I love that I am allowed to completely just be me. This is a place where you're never just sitting any day and going, we won the race. You're always trying to beat your next time. So just like you always want to make sure that next rack of lamb gets even better. How do I get it even more perfect? As a company, we're always looking to be better than we were yesterday.
So earlier this year, I asked you if you'd come to our broker meeting and just talk about Lisa's life lessons, we'll call them. And you did. And like everyone else in the room, I had a notepad and I wrote some things down and I've got some of them here and we'll do some rapid fire takeaways from Lisa's life lessons. So we can do it one of two ways. You can tell me if there are some that you want to start with, or I can read them and you can either say, all right, here's the reaction or the story of where I got it or what it means.
You can read them.
Just
these were, I know that you, and again, it's tough to talk about yourself. It feels uncomfortable, what have you. That was a great experience because it's not something that I normally do. And again, I'm pushing myself to speak more at things. And you're usually the one who's making me do that. So thank you. I appreciate in our friendship and in our working relationship, you always see something in me that I don't see in myself. And you never allow me to behave the way I see myself. You always make me come to wherever you think I am. And I appreciate that. For that, getting to speak to your group and kind of tell the story and not have it be real boxed and real canned was great. But you coming afterwards and saying, I went to each person and said, give me some takeaways. What did you get from it? That was the interesting part for me, is that we talked a lot in that meeting, but what is like that key takeaway? What is the thing? And everybody had something different. Everybody had that one thing that just struck them, and it made them feel something. And that meant a lot to me.
I'll share this with you. I've heard a lot of speakers in my day. I'm in a group called Vistage. I've been in it for 10 years. We meet once a month, 8 times. Is it 8? Yeah, eight times a year. We have a Vistage speaker come in. These are subject matter experts in whatever their subject is. They present for 3 hours. in addition to all the leadership stuff that I've been involved with, all the boards that I've been involved with facilitators, my own stuff that I, would go to seminars, this, that, the other. So I've seen a lot, and I also have been tinkering with my own speaking. And when you do that, you start to ask like, okay, what's the format? What's the style? What are the tools? Like Simon Sinek's famous TED Talk, Start With Why, he had a flip chart. And this thing comes viral because he had a flip chart and 3 circles on it. You think about how fascinating that is.
Yeah.
It wasn't this like multimedia PowerPoint. It's a damn flip chart. The style of presentation you gave was, it's something we should like break down here. So we have a monthly broker meeting. We have people ask us all the time, as with all companies like ours, hey, can I come to your broker meeting? I want to get in front of your agents. And I made it a policy a long time ago. Like, I am not your business development person. There are people we have relationships with that are, valued vendors that we do tons of work with, that we do bring in because it is educational. The other thing is you have a room full of people, varying experiences. They're in different parts of not just their career, but their level of expertise. So you bring in someone that, is a capital markets guru, and they're talking over half the room and 2 people are getting something out of it. Or you bring someone in that's talking about sales fundamentals, which is generally good for everybody, but 2 people are just like bored to tears already. And so it's a hard thing to do, to bring somebody in that's going to spend time and provide value to everybody. How do you do that? What do you do? And you came in, and my observation was you told your story. I'm Lisa Brady. I started in this industry, similar to what you did now, but you emphasized some lessons you learned and where you learned them from. Now I take notes. I took a lot of the notes, and I did go around because how did it go? And you gave us your time so I can spend my time and ask, what did you gain to close the feedback loop for you? And yeah, there was, as you would expect, where you are in your career, you can hear the Lisa Brady presentation. You're going to take different things away from it at different points. So you have a sampling of people, and everyone's going to get something. Everyone got something. From our most senior, most experienced, highest producing to our newest that doesn't, how'd you say it? The newest person that knows least than anybody. Everyone got something. And so here they are. So choose good people to work with.
You spend too many hours in the industry, in whatever industry you're in, to be miserable. It's one of the only choices you have. And if you have surrounded yourself by people you trust, people you enjoy, and this doesn't mean that you're going out and you're having happy hour every night and your families and your kids grow up together. Sometimes it's as much as you spend all day. They know a completely different side of you than your family does. You can be as authentic as you want. You're still different at work. And if you're with people that you absolutely despise, what are you doing? Life is too short.
Be loyal.
So, and it's going to come up a lot of times in this, and I'll cover it on the macro level because I know that sentiment comes up a lot, is how you treat others and the reputation you have in whatever industry you're in is the only real collateral you have. You can drive a nice car. You can wear the fanciest suits. You can carry, expensive bag. You can do all those things, but it doesn't change your actions and how someone perceives you and your loyalty and your reputation and those things. That's all you really have as collateral. The rest of it is just things you're doing. Yes, you're going to get experience, but I know people who've been in the business a long time who are experienced who aren't very good. So experience isn't made equal for everyone. We've all had different experiences. And so I've worked at places where, especially early in my career, where I wasn't treated real well. Some other industries where people were dishonest, where there was not a lot of, and I don't feel a company has to be 100% transparent, because there are things that you have to keep as trade secrets, and there are things in just running a business. But I do think that you have to be honest with your people. And so that loyalty and that trust has served me well in life and in business. And when you stray away from that is where you start to see, we'll look at the Great Recession. It was the hardest time that some of us had ever been in our careers. And there were people who were making a lot of money before it who didn't do a single deal for 18 months. Not one paycheck came in. My paychecks might have been small during that time, but the people that I worked with made sure I continued to get paid. They found a way. I'll find a referral for you. They wanted to make sure that I lived. And that was because I had cultivated real relationships. I had stayed loyal to them and they stayed loyal to me. And I know that when things get rough, those are the ones you want. You don't want the people who would say, you'd come back, someone would call you, you'd get a referral, and you'd say, well, who put you in this office space 5 years ago? Someone at XYZ. What was their name? I don't know. I just remember they were at XYZ. It was a big company. That's who we used. I never wanted any of my clients to know my company name over mine. I kept the same cell number. I've only had one cell number my entire life. I've never changed it. And people will still call me 10 years later and go, I know that you probably don't do this anymore, but who will you give me that you trust? That's what I want. That's what I always wanted. I wasn't the person who was going to work 24 hours a day to make the most money at the cost of others. I was the person who was going to work 24 hours a day so that we all made money.
The next three are related, like you said. Stay in contact with your contacts. Reputation is everything. You're only as good as your last interaction.
So that's a new one we've been really talking about in our office. We do a lot of surveys with our customers, and we ask for honest feedback on all the different stages. When you're dealing with someone in leasing and renewing or getting a new, when you're dealing with the maintenance techs, when you're dealing with all of those. And we had one that came back that was, best I can say it, is just absolutely incendiary. And the person that wrote it had had a bad day and was mad because we were trying to collect rent because they were 2 months late. And he was annoyed. And he took it out on us on the survey. And when we called him to say, is that how you really feel? He's like, I said that? Wow. That's not how I feel. I've been working with you guys for literally 15 years. I love you. You guys treat me so well. I was just in a bad mood. And so you have to remember how you're catching someone. If you continue to rise, and they talk about that in like customer service, is if you have someone who is yelling on the phone, do not yell back. Mm-hmm. Use a modulated tone and it will bring them down. But if you rise to them, they'll continue to elevate. And so it's that way in your interactions. Is if you've got someone who's having a rough day, we all do. We have days where we don't act like ourselves. You have to be careful because the way you react is how they're going to remember you too.
Networking is people talking about you kindly to others.
So that's networking. Networking is a really interesting thing. I've never believed in showing up and seeing how many business cards I could get. I believed in connections. And so I want to leave an event having had 2 or 3 really great conversations where I learned something about someone that I can later say to them, I remember you. And I'll have people go, I don't even remember when I told you this. How do you remember this? And you're very good at that, is making that connection and it not just being a surface conversation. And so I used to see young agents come and they'd be like, I met the mayor of North Las Vegas. And I'd go, okay, what did you learn about them? Well, I got introduced to them and I got their card. And I'm like, okay, well, what are you going to do with that card? If you called them right now, what are you going to do with it? Are you going to get any value from that? But did you, and they'll say, well, I also met, this woman who does furniture sales, and we talked and she's taking her kid on this. And I'm like, okay, so the next time you see them, that their kid was going on a college junket to go pick their college. You write that down on the back of the business card. You remember that. And the next time you talk to them, you can say, what college did you? Now they're going to remember you.
They're going to be blown away.
And maybe that person's going to now send you a referral because they heard a company's moving to town. You just don't know. But I never go into a conversation with what am I going to get out of it? I just try to make a connection with another human being. That's how I've always networked. Right or wrong, networking people would probably cringe at what I'm saying, but I never look at where is there a value add for me. I just want a nice conversation, and I don't want to end up at an event that I just get a bunch of cards I'm never going to look at again.
I feel like these next three are connected. Take initiative, not the lazy way out. There is no magic pill. You work when you need to work.
So not everyone agrees with me on this. And part of this comes from...
Doesn't matter. This is life lessons.
But part of it comes from my childhood is nothing ever came easy. I didn't come from money. I didn't come from a highly educated family. I didn't come from anything where it was... I grew up, and I always tell people, don't call your daughter a princess. The last job was just taken by Meghan Markle. There's no more open positions. Calling your child that, I was always taught, if you want it, you have to work for it. You wanted that thing, you're either going to work for half of it or you're working for all of it to pay for it. And so when things come too easy for me, I'm very suspicious, which isn't a great thing, but I know that about me and I have to look at my motivations. But as I sit and talk to people about this, I want them to get that you have to put the time in. And so you met with Kevin Higgins, and there's a great example of a team where from the outside, someone could say, well, he's got a partner, Garrett. He's got his nephew, Sean, his son, Jake, his daughter, Kelsey. Now they've got Tice. There's only 2 other people in the family that aren't blood related to them. And every one of them has to go through the same thing. They are first in, they are last out. They all have to be on committees on NAIOP. They all have to put their time in doing research. Nothing is handed to them. Every one of them has worked very, very hard, and maybe harder than they would have worked somewhere else to move up in that team. And I appreciate that because there's never a time where I talk to anyone in that team where I have to worry that they are someone who hasn't been trained, someone who doesn't know what they're talking about. I can go to anyone. I can go to the newest person, and I know they're being trained correctly, and no one just gets a free ride. And so you have to kind of look at those magic pills and see, is that really in your best interest? For a short time, that might seem fun, is having someone just hand it all to you. You work at a national company and you only get referrals and you never go out and learn. I call them house cats. There's feral cats who have learned to go out and figure out how to get fed however it happens. And then there's house cats who work a network. Good on them. But there's very few of those. And if you're only working the network when times get tough, how are you getting paid? And so that to me is a really big thing. It's an amazing industry to be in, but it's not an easy one.
Be thankful for the card you carry.
So if you do not have a respect for the company you're working for, the name that is on your card, don't let it define you. Don't let yourself be that person that in 5 years, someone else walks in, cold calls them, and they say, sure, I'll work with you because I've never heard from that broker before. I just know that they were with that company. Don't let it define you, but be respectful of what you're carrying because others have built this. So I would say for your company, everyone that carries the MDL card, Kurt and Carol spent decades building a strong foundation. You and Jared came in to bring in and usher in the quantum leaps. There's a Hayam. The quantum leaps in this and bring it to the next phase. It didn't change the foundation. The foundation has always been solid. You were able to build on something that was built on respect, on having a, I would guess that if I asked the tenure of every one of your property management clients going back with Carol, that there's hardly a company in town that can say that they've had clients as long as MDL has. If you come in and you don't respect the brand, what are you doing there? If it's just because they gave you a good split, or the desk cost is cheap, or because they made some promises, because I can tell you when you're out interviewing, especially as agents, everyone is a great salesman. That's the reason we're in the business. Everyone's going to sound like the greatest place to work. There's going to be good and bad. You have to understand that. But if you don't respect the card you're carrying, why are you carrying it?
How you react at your worst times defines you.
This is one I struggle with every day. Is at night, most nights, I take stock of the day and I take stock of my reactions in times of stress, in times of insanity, in times of, you just spilt the water on your keyboard in the middle of a major call and the Zoom went out and everything, is how you react to that. If you start throwing things, if you start screaming and yelling, if you start, getting upset, snapping at people, that's where I take stock that night and I go, oh, I did not handle that the way I wanted to.
You yell at people?
There are times I don't yell at people, but there are times where my response comes out of my mouth quicker than I would like it to. And everyone has that. They have their own reactions. Some people go hide. Things get bad and they put their head in the sand and they go, I can't do it. I can't do it. Some people hit it head on. If I was in, if there was a major accident right now, my first reaction is I will dive in and I will fix the situation. And then 10 minutes later, all that adrenaline will catch up to me and I will have all the other emotions and have my breakdown then, but in the moment of it. And so remembering to, in the moment, be the calm, cool, collected voice. And then later, if you need to blow off some steam because it was aggravating, do it later. Don't do it in the moment.
You will either succeed or learn a good lesson.
I don't believe in failure. And I couldn't have told you that 10 years ago. I would have used that word failure, and I don't let people use that anymore. I had times where I did research on projects when I was an agent for 6 months. And this is all on my own time at night, researching this, building maps and books and everything. And then the deal would die. And I would go, well, that was a waste. And somehow miraculously in the next 12 months, something else would come up where all of that I could then speak like a subject matter expert. And everyone was like, how do you know this? And I'm like, because I spent 6 months that I thought was wasted that now is very important. And so take that as education when something doesn't go the way you want it to, and use it later to turn into a success. But don't call it failures.
This is also something it sounds like Rob said to you when you were starting the company after pestering him for every day for 30 days. If it works or if it doesn't work, it's fine. We'll go find some place to hang our licenses. And if it does, I'm not going to take it away from you.
First person we hired was 20 years old. It was her 20th birthday. She was a runner. We were leasing space from one of the larger law firms. Such a great gig. So we had use of their runners, of all of their stuff. We had beautiful space downtown and it was just the two of us. And our motto was keep it small and keep it all. And she was a runner and her mom worked at the firm and she kept saying, I really want to work with you. And we kept going, we don't want a 20-year-old. We don't want to take someone on. There's months where we're happy to get paid. And she beat us down. And he said exactly that. He said, you're going to manage her because I want you to get the experience. And there's no better way to get it. And if it's a failure, then she goes in a year and she'll go on her way. And if it's not a failure, then you learn something. And so he made it so that a lot of the times where I was gung-ho to do something because I was young, he put it into perspective. This could not work. It could not be what you think it's going to be or what you want it to be, but that's still going to be okay because something good's going to come from it.
You and I talked about our little crafts earlier, cooking, baking, and getting into things. So we have a graphic designer here named Josie, and she got into this. It's called lettering. Have you heard of this or no? It's actually an art form. It's taking like topography and graphic design and images and styles and whatnot and creating things out of that. So she's taken classes. She's practiced it. She does some things on her own. Like lately she's been doing like cards, not birthday cards, but all sorts of cards. And so I gave her your list of Lisa's life lessons. And Josie applied her
wow
to create.
I love
this for you.
She's getting caramels.
I hope the motif works either in your home or in your office.
It's going in my office. It's going out in the bullpen. And she's getting caramels. That is amazing. Wow.
Isn't that awesome?
Yeah. That kind of takes my breath away. That is amazing. Thank you. I'm going to hold it up for the camera on this side too. That is beautiful. Wow. Yeah. That means a lot.
Don't scratch my desk.
We don't care about your desk. We care about this.
There's a box I'll give you to put it in so it doesn't get damaged. I have a final question before I do. Like, what did you think of this experience?
I was very nervous to start. You knew that. It's intimidating. It's a lot of large microphones, all of these things where it takes you a while to feel like you're just authentically having a conversation with your friend Chaim. It's been a great experience, as you knew it would be. This is why I say you always push me to be things that I don't see in myself. And you always make me try those things. And I appreciate that.
Great. Are you still nervous?
Not nervous, but I still know all these things are here. Every time I lick my lips, every time I move my mouth, I change. I still know that there's something staring at me. Yeah. I was definitely not made for, I was more made for voice than TV.
Really?
Yeah.
I disagree. I want you to end with your favorite CRE story of all time. Before you tell the story, though, are there any other takeaways that you want to share that you haven't shared?
Probably one of the ones that we didn't talk about is pass it on. And we talked about this a little bit, is that I mentor, but I don't mentor to tell the world I mentor. I mentor organically. Someone says, hey, you know something I don't know. Can we spend time? And I learn from you. I was raised by a village. I was raised by a bunch of family members and friends. And as I was growing up, I always looked at each person and said, what's the best thing I can take from them? Where I think some people are raised by traditional mother, father. So they pull from both of them, and you can see they're an amalgamation of those two people. Mine is, I can look back and say, this piece of me is because of my aunt. This piece of me is because of my uncle. This piece is because of this person. All of those people who raised me. Today, more than ever, we have generations coming up that are spending so much time disconnected from people that we need it even more. We need those stories passed down. We need those life lessons shared, and we need to spend the time and again, I don't mentor just 20-year-olds. I mentor people who are in their 40s and 50s because I have a different experience or I have a different life lesson, and they're not looking at me to be their life coach. They're looking at some things that I do. And I try that when we're talking is I'll say, like, what is it? Why did you want to work with me? Why did you want to spend time with me? What is it about me? So that I'm giving them what they're looking for. I'm not just, I don't have a set of things that I'm just going through and saying, okay, let's go through the checklist. These are the things I ask. It's more organic, and I like that. But mentoring, no matter what age you are, is spending time with other people and passing on the good things. That's how it used to be done, and we're getting away from it, and I hope we don't lose that.
That's a good takeaway.
So it's not on my sheet. I need a sticky note for the sheet.
You know it was coming. Pass it on.
Yes. Thank you.
Josie will kill me if this goes on your thing.
We'll just put it to the side.
She might laugh.
Yeah.
All right. What is your favorite CRE story of all time?
There's so many. There's so many strange ones. I'll tell a couple short ones. So I was young in the business. This was a life lesson one. I was young in the business. I was
last week.
Yeah. I was probably 28. And I had an executive from the Four Seasons who wanted an office closer to home. He lived in Henderson in a master plan development, and the drive to the Four Seasons was too long. And at the time, I drove a little Toyota Corolla, and I was always worried someone getting in it was going to be really tall. So I would put the seat all the way back and like get my little car all ready. And I went to pick him up, and he was 5'2". And he came out and he sat in the seat, and it literally, his feet were like dangling. And he was behind me because the seat was so far back. And we went to look at offices, and I was so nervous. And he was from a different culture, and he was very short, and I could never connect with him. He wouldn't talk with me. We would just go look. So I went to sign the lease with him, and he made me come to his house. And he signed the lease, and then he dismissed me, literally by going, okay. And I remember getting out in the car, and I was traumatized. I was like, I can't believe, like, I just did all this work for him, and he didn't even say thank you. He didn't say goodbye. He literally waved me out the door. And I called Rob, and a lot of these stories, because we worked together so long, and it was those formative years, and there's a lot of Robisms or Mooreisms if you've ever worked with him. But he said a very colorful thing and said, you don't ever have to take that from someone. You are getting to a point in your career, you don't have to take every deal. You don't have to take every client. If someone treats you poorly, you say, shaking hands, be friends, but I'm not going to work with you. And it was the first time that I felt like, oh my gosh, I'm not just a servant to these clients because that's where I'm making my money. I do have some control in that. So that was a big turning point. But I always remember sitting there and seeing his feet nowhere near the floorboards. And I was like, oh man, what have I done?
It's almost like you trolled him in advance.
Yes.
Moving the chair all the way back.
I was ready for him.
When you were setting up the story, I'm like, oh, is this going to be a tall person? And it was, immediately I got the image like, oh no.
And it's so bad when you've done that, because I was sitting forward in my seat, so he was behind me. So I couldn't even really see him without turning around. So that was terrible. We had one where we did an assemblage, and anyone who was involved with it knows every name that's involved in this. But we had a client who had a piece of land, and we decided to assemble to sell to D.R. Horton. That's who ended up buying it out in Henderson. And we had to work with Nevada Power. We had to work with all of these people. And in that deal, I learned a couple of things. At the last minute, my client was looking to take down the whole thing, and then we were going to flip it. And it was going to go to a home builder. And my client came from a large real estate family, was married into it, and was told by an in-law they didn't have confidence in this deal and they should get out. And at the last minute, they said, find someone to take our place. And in 48 hours, we replaced their money. We got them out, made them whole. We sold it. And at the time, we did a staggered, because we didn't know how much this was going to sell. And it was when things were really getting hot with the home buyers. And it was
staggered commission?
Yes.
Okay.
And so it was, like, here's X, the more it sells. And we had put it where we stopped it at like 7 or 8%, because we were like, this is ridiculous. It's never going to get to that. We could have done 3 more steps. We left money on the table. Mm-hmm. It was a total home run. And this guy called and said some very choice words about his family, the in-laws, and then said, anything you ever bring to me, I will always do a deal, because he lost millions. And so there was another one of those where you have to be careful of who you're bringing in. And so whenever someone says they're starting a business or they have a great new idea, I always tell them, don't tell everyone. Pick someone who's going to be the voice of reason to you, and pick somebody who is your cheerleader, not someone who is your detractor, because human nature is we want everyone to do well, just not better than us. And so you never want to find someone. So you want to find that person who is going to say, you can do anything. Then you want the person who goes, but let's talk about the reality, not the person who says, well, you can't do that. And so in learning that, it really made it so that you have to be careful who you're talking to about those things, because those are very important conversations, and you don't want it to be with someone who doesn't have your best interest at heart. And it's not malicious. It's just human nature.
What's interesting about that is that you are the voice of reason and you are the cheerleader.
Usually, yes.
So that makes you a unicorn.
A little bit.
Back to where we started.
Yeah.
Thanks for doing this, Lisa.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening. I would love to hear from you about your takeaways from this episode. Make sure to leave us a comment or leave us a review. Also, please subscribe to our YouTube channel so you can hear future episodes as they come out. My name is Chaim Mizrahi. Tune in next time.